Singapore.
Okay,
From Singapore and myself. Unfortunately, well, I'm hoping to be in Italy very soon, but we'll see. We'll see.
Where are you now? In Australia or?
Singapore.
Singapore. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
God, the last place you want to be at the moment is Australia. It's just a disaster. Complete disaster.
There's restrictions, a lot of restrictions currently.
Yeah, well, they decided that vaccination was a really bad idea. Now they're discovering that it really was a bad idea not to be vaccinated. So they will probably be fixed by January, I would say. So how are you?
Well, we're looking at the grapes. It seems as if we're going to have going to be a little bit later than last year, a week, 10 days. We have fresh nights, so we're quite happy. We're quite happy. Better weather conditions this year than we had in recent years or in years such as 2017, and because we've had fresh nights all through the summer. Not even though we had very, very hot days. Luckily, we had fresh nights, so we should have good aromas, good if we get a little bit of water before we finish the ripening, we can have a really very good year. Very small, very small vintage because of the frost we had in February.
Of course.
In April, I mean, in April.
Francesco, did you suffer any of the heat that southern Italy had last week? Because I read somewhere that Sicily had the hottest day ever recorded in Sicily last week.
48 degrees or something.
Yes, we did, but at the same time, nights have been less warm, less hot than in other recent years when we had heat waves and the temperatures remained very high at night as well. That has not been the case this year. Luckily during the night the temperature dropped sufficiently for the plant to recover, and so we didn't have we don't see those phenomena of dehydration of the grapes that we saw, for instance, in 2017.
Okay,
very good. Very good.
Yeah. So fingers crossed. We should start Pinot Grigio in about 10 days, a week, 10 days, and then the other grapes will follow.
That's fantastic. Well, so we're just on 7 o'clock, so let's kick off. There's Francesco wants to present the reds in a different order to what we have listed in the chat room, but he will indicate which jars. We'll take it very slowly, and he'll indicate which jars he wants to do when. The first two jars, the Chardonnay and the Rosso, are both correct. So let's put those in front of us to start with. I'd like to thank Francesco for joining us yet again. He's speaking to us from his mountain chalet at 1,600 meters above all the heat on the coast. Very jealous. It's a very beautiful part of Italy to be in. This is we're seeing these wines. I think everything today that we're tasting is organic now. The entire winery has now evolved into complete organics. Is that right, or is the Poggio still pre the organic changeover?
We are tasting the Poggio al Vento 2013, which is the first vintage certified organic.
Oh, that's fantastic. So we can drink to our heart's content tonight and have no fear of hangovers. That's the theory anyway. I'm not sure if that's in practice. I keep practicing, but come up with the wrong results. But anyway, so Francesco,
I think you're right. You're right. The low levels of sulfites that organic producers work towards all the time are a key element in the way you feel the next morning.
Okay, that being the case, I'll keep trying. So thanks for joining us. I'm going to hand over to you, Francesco, because you have a presentation for us. But as long as the group has their first two jars, we'll go from there.
Yes, yes. I'll thank you for that, and I'll share my screen so that we can look at some pictures, some images from Montalcino while I talk. Here we go. So I always like to start with this picture and what I actually call the symbology that's present on the labels of the wines. First of all, the name called Orcia. Col in Italian means hill, and Orcia is the name of the valley, the name of the river. So the name of the estate actually indicates the place where the vineyards are planted, where all the grapes are sourced for the wines we're going to be tasting today. So we represent a portion of the territory of Montalcino, a portion of the denomination of Brunello, and we work to provide you with the best expression of these southern slopes that face south, east, beg your pardon, southwest, that are in full sun all through the afternoon into the sunset. And then we have the symbol on which you can find on the labels. It's composed of two elements. You have the bottom part, the 3 rows of hills. This is very typical of the area of Montalcino. The municipality of Montalcino has the same symbol on its coat of arms. And for us at Col d'Orcia, it represents our agricultural spirit, agricultural soul. I always like to say that at Col d'Orcia, we are not winemakers. We are farmers. We grow grapes, and the wines are a consequence of the fruit we pick from our vineyards. So the 3 rows of hills are indication of our work in the fields, the fact that our wines are made in the vineyard. And then we have the hand pointing to the star, which is a very ancient symbol from Middle Ages. And we have reinterpreted this as our search for excellence, our quest for stardom, our quest for quality in our everyday endeavors. Now, what I'd like to do, if I, here we go. I'd like to tell a story about Montalcino, a story about Brunello, which is a bit different from the typical wine story. That's because Montalcino and the land of Brunello is so unique. It has a very unique predisposition towards biodiversity. For the most, I would say, famous wine denomination from Italy these days around the world, only 15% of the land which is under the denomination is actually planted with vineyards. Of the remaining land, more than 50% is still today occupied by Mediterranean shrub, by natural woodland. So a very rich biodiversity, a very rich environmental situation with an enormous variety of plants, of aromatic plants, which are typical of our cuisine, our Mediterranean cuisine, wildlife very present, a very healthy environment in which to do organic agriculture. So we produce many other crops apart from vineyards. It's certainly in Montalcino, certainly not monocultural situation as you have in many other denominations, wine denominations in Italy. So we produce a lot of olive oil, and the olive oil from Montalcino, the olive oil from the land of Brunello is very rich aromatically, very deep in taste, and very recognizable. So very high quality as well. We produce a lot of honey. Montalcino is one of the largest producers of honey in Italy. And apart from the quality of the honey, what is really important is the presence of the bees, the fact that they are able to survive in our environment because it's so healthy, so diverse, being the bees very sensitive to chemical contamination. And truffles is the same example as honey. We have more than 110 natural truffle fields in the territory of Montalcino, one of them on the estate of Orcia itself. And then spelt. Spelt is the grain that the ancient Romans used to use for bread and biscuits before they discovered wheat. Wheat is actually from the Iberian Peninsula. So we produce our own pasta. We produce our own spelt for soups and risottos and dishes of that kind. We also grow tobacco at Orcia. In fact, we have an agreement with a small producer of hand-rolled cigars, Toscano cigars. For those that like cigars, they probably have heard about the typical ancient hand-rolled cigar from Tuscany called Toscano. And we are the only supplier of organic tobacco leaves for these very unique, very typical cigars from the region.
How do they
So we
differ
belong
from?
to.
How do they differ from the Venetian tobacco? Because Lou and I were in Venice a few years ago, and one of the wineries gave us some cigars to try, and they were pretty scary. They were kind of.
No, that was Tuscan tobacco.
Was it Tuscan tobacco? Oh, okay.
We were at Tedeschi, but it was Tuscan tobacco. There's no tobacco outside of Tuscany.
Oh, okay. I thought it was from there. Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
The variety we grow is Kentucky tobacco.
Uh-huh.
And we in Italy, tobacco is a monopoly, so we are not able to retain the property of the tobacco. We have to hand it over, sell it to a cigar manufacturer.
Oh, okay.
But they market their cigars with our brand name, a brand name that I have registered, and they ensure that the tobacco we grow produces cigars which are recommended only for expert smokers, because the smoke is really very, very rich, and it penetrates your throat and your mouth, and it's quite an imposing cigar. I would.
All right. Sorry to interrupt you. It's one of my obsessions is cigars. I interrupted you.
If you remember, Rob, when we had them, it penetrated our feet.
Yeah. I was written off for days afterwards, but
they were mightily strong. Mightily strong.
Yeah.
All this happens in a territory called Val d'Orcia, the Orcia Valley, which is a natural park and patrimony of humanity. So the wines we're going to be tasting shortly are wines that are produced from grapes grown in a natural park in a World Heritage Site. Okay. Because of all I have been saying just now, this very unique environment, this very unique predisposition to biodiversity of the area, I felt a responsibility of what I was doing with the land that I'm so lucky to be able to manage. And I decided that I had to look at the long term. I had to look at what I would be leaving to the next generations. And so in the year 2008, 2009, I decided to go organic, fully organic. And in 2010, I started the process of certification, the conversion period that is called, which lasts 3 years. And from vintage 2013, I became fully organic, not only in the vineyards, but the whole estate. And as I like to say, even the gardens are managed in an organic fashion. So today we will be tasting one of the oldest wine we're going to be tasting today is the Brunello di Montalcino Poggio al Vento 2013. That's the wine number 6 on the samples you have received. This wine completes the work. In fact, it completes what I call my short-term project. My short-term project was to become organic, and I started in 2010. And finally now, 11 years later, I'm able to present the wine that has all the characteristics, the organic certification that I've been pursuing. So this is the time horizon of a producer of Brunello for a short-term project, 10 to 11 years. So I became organic farm from 2013, and the tree I'm showing on the picture now is a very old oak tree, probably more than 400 years old, maybe around 500 years old, which we have chosen as the symbol of our care for the environment. It is a tree that when my father arrived in Montalcino in the year 1974 and planted the first vineyard on the estate, he preserved this tree. Care for the environment was very, very different than what it is today in the 1970s, yet he recognized the importance of such a monument of nature and preserved it, and so it has become the symbol for our care towards the environment even before it became such a present necessity such as it is these days. Cordocia is a pioneer in research and development. If there is some aspect of the management of the vineyard, of the agronomics regarding the growing of grapes, I'm happy to answer any questions. At Cordocia, we have researched thoroughly with the University of Florence, the University of Pisa, and other universities, all the aspects of managing the vineyard, especially the Sangiovese vineyard in the Montalcino territory. So here you have a picture of a vineyard with one row with a cover crop, the green row, and the next one which is actually plowed. So this is part of the way we manage the vineyards, and we have been pioneers in working with cover crops in the vineyards for quite a long time. And here is a timeline, if you like, of how the use of cover crops in the vineyards has evolved over the last 30 years since we've started using it systematically. And these days, the use of cover crops is such an important element in fighting climatic change and making sure the soil in which we plant the vineyards has the capacity to retain moisture, to retain humidity, even in periods of great drought, as we are experiencing with the climatic changes. So an organic farm involves really everybody that works on the estate. It's not something you can do 9 to 5, becoming organic. It's something that really has to involve you in many aspects of life, from how you manage your garbage and how you manage the water supply and the water use. That's why we have what we do on the estate is we farm biodiversity. We make sure that we replicate the way the land used to be managed before the introduction of chemical products in agriculture, before the Second World War. The picture you see on the screen is for some farm animals, and we have many families living on the estate, all with their own farm animals, and families with children that are interested in having their own chickens and having fresh eggs and having an orchard with vegetables, fruits, and so on. And all this is part of that holistic approach that really makes the organic management of the land easier. Orcia is also an historic farm that has been present since the beginning of the history of Brunello. It used to be a larger estate called Fattoria Sant'Angelo, but Orcia was created in the 1950s as a heir to the Fattoria Sant'Angelo itself. And here on the picture you have one of the very first tre bicchieri for the Brunello di Montalcino, Riserva, Poggio al Vento. And here you have a label from the 1970s of the Brunello di Montalcino by Orcia. I like to show it because Orcia is an historic estate, has been distributed for a long time in many markets around the world. Sometimes in some established restaurants and some established hotel, you might find old bottles of Brunello di Montalcino. And I can assure you, in most cases, if the cork has behaved the right way, you find a treasure, something that's really worth tasting. This is the first label of Rosso di Montalcino, first label because Rosso di Montalcino became D.O.C. in the year 1983. Here again, you can find bottles, old bottles of Rosso di Montalcino by Orcia in restaurants around the world. And let me remind you, Rosso di Montalcino is made with the same Sangiovese as Brunello, so it has capacity to age in the same way as Brunello does. Often I get asked the question, what has made Brunello so famous? And my answer is, it's a magic formula that was discovered by Clemente Santi in the middle of the 19th century, when he realized that wine made with Sangiovese grapes, grown in Montalcino and aged in the large traditional oak barrels that you can see on the picture, actually did not become vinegar, but it improved over time. It evolved in a positive way. It became better and better. This is very rare and very unique, and not many denominations around Italy or around the world can claim this characteristic. The magic formula is composed of the climate situation we have in Montalcino, very healthy climate, very breezy, very even windy many days of the year, very dry in the afternoon, so a lot of concentration of the grapes, a lot of evaporation going on during the season from the plants, everything conducive to the concentration of the aromas and tastes in the grapes. The Sangiovese, the selection of Sangiovese that's been going on over time, over decades, over centuries in Montalcino, and that has adapted to the local conditions. And the soils are part of the magic formula as well. Many different soils in Montalcino, but all with the characteristic of an important presence of limestone. So wines made in the vineyard. That's our concept, and that's the way we like to present our wines. We are not only organic, we are also following many biodynamic practices in the vineyards at Orcia. And one of the requirements of biodynamics is a personalized attention to each single vine, which requires manual harvest, but not only harvest. Every operation during the year it has to be conducted manually to respect the identity of each single plant, of each single vine. So at Orcia, we can really say that every bunch of grapes is touched by human hand. Every bottle that leaves our cellar is checked by a person. We produce very traditional wines, and as we taste them, we can discuss this aspect. And when we say traditional, obviously we use the traditional barrels, the very large ones, and the long aging and all that. But it's also the style of wine which is traditional. For us, tradition is wine thought, conceived to be consumed at dinner time on the dinner table. So the pairing with food is essential. The drinkability, the freshness, the acidity, to say it in a very simple term, of the wine is the key element that makes it easy to pair with recipes with food. And we can talk about the pairings as we taste the wines. So we can start with the wine number one, the white wine, and this wine is called Ghiaie Bianche. Ghiaie Bianche means white pebbles. This vineyard is planted close to the river, the Orcia River, so soil with a lot of pebbles, which are very white in color, and that's where the name comes from. It is a Sant'Antimo wine. Just a word about Sant'Antimo, which is the D.O.C.G we use for this wine and for the two other wines we're going to be tasting shortly. It is a denomination for the territory of Montalcino. So we're talking about grapes that are grown only in the territory that produces Brunello, but other than Sangiovese. So
Francesco, do I have it correct that the D.O.C.G River is actually the dividing line on the extremity of the border of Brunello? Does the river actually define
the river is one of the three rivers that encloses the territory of Montalcino. The Orcia River represents the southern, roughly speaking, southern border of the territory of Montalcino, looking towards the south and towards the Mediterranean coast.
The one thing that strikes me with the Chardonnay year in and year out is the sort of crunchy minerality that seems to exude. There's a sort of a lot of forward freshness about the wine that seems to translate year in and year out. That sort of minerality, that texture to the wine is a bit of a winning shot. We were having some brief discussions before the event started tonight about how important Chardonnay is to Tuscany, and certainly the preeminent varietal. But Francesco was also talking a lot about Vermentino and how Vermentino is now being used in many ways similar, and the viticultural process is similar to Chardonnay to actually be able to bottle age and get a much broader flavor profile out of Vermentino. So that's something also to be on the lookout in Tuscany in terms of white wines.
Yes, and Chardonnay has now become rather traditional, and I think it's you find in this glass and in the glasses of the other Sant'Antimo we're going to taste another demonstration of how unique the territory of Montalcino, the territory that produces Brunello, actually is, because we have. Thank you for your comments. The minerality, the depths, but the powerful aromatic element to this white wine, to this Chardonnay from Montalcino, that is an indication that not only Sangiovese gives good results in our territory.
Yeah. Turning to the sorry.
No, please go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to suggest time is marching against us. It's almost 7:30. Maybe we could turn to the Rosso di Montalcino now. The one thing I wanted to ask you about the Rosso, for so long people have described Rosso di Montalcino as the baby Brunello, as I guess the younger brother. And one of the things that I think Orcia has done so very, very well is seems to have combined the classic structure and gravitas of Brunello with the freshness of the fruit. You somehow put these two characteristics in one bottle, and very often Rosso di Montalcino misses that gravitas and that fullness and structure. It's all about primary fruit and doesn't echo the great structure and I guess the soul of Brunello. But somehow with yours, you have both. You seem to have encaptured the best of both worlds. And for me, this Rosso we must sell at any one time 5 or 6 different Rossos from around it, Tuscany. For me, this seems to be my benchmark Rosso always.
Well, before 1983, before this wine became a D.O.C. Rosso di Montalcino, it existed under a different name, and the prior name was red wine from the Brunello vineyards. At Cordoccia, we still produce it that very same way. We choose the grapes in the Brunello vineyards early on during the harvest, selecting the grapes, the bunches that will deliver freshness and fruitiness, without forgetting that we're still producing a wine from the Brunello vineyards, so that it has the capacity to age. It has that importance that Sangiovese from Montalcino shows.
Possibly other winemakers haven't given it quite as much circumspection or attention to detail as Cordoccia does. You know, I get this feeling when I taste the Rosso is that you're treating it with as much care as you do your Brunello, and for me it shows in the final product. It's exceptionally good.
And it's very versatile in terms of pairing with food. Because of its freshness, it can really go from a recipe of cooked fish, maybe some fish fillets in a Mediterranean sauce with tomatoes and capers and olives and so on, all the way into white meat, poultries, and spanning from pasta, ragu, pizza, and so on. And we like to serve it a little bit fresh in summer. So keep it in the white wine fridge and then pull it out maybe 15 minutes early. So that in the glass it's nice and fresh in the way you would taste it in Montalcino, just drawn from the barrel.
So it's kind of cool as a temperature rather than cold. Although in Singapore, it's been my experience pulling a wine. I love to have Chardonnay at about 14 degrees. And if I take the Chardonnay out of the fridge in Singapore, I've got about 10 minutes before the temperature goes in the wrong direction. So,
well, you know how to manage the local climate.
Yeah. One has to make adjustments. Even at this price point.
For the next wine, I would like to ask the participants to switch the order in which the samples has arrived. Let me explain. We're going to taste 2 more Sangioveses, 2 Brunellos actually, wine number 5 and wine number 6. And I would like you to taste those before wine number 3 and 4, because number 5 and 6 are Sangiovese, are Brunello. And Brunello is a medium-bodied wine where you have to really not only look to power and depth, but also elegance. Wine number 3 and 4 are from international grape varieties, Cabernet, Merlot, and so on, and Syrah, and they're full-bodied wines, and they might sort of overwhelm your palate and not do justice to the Brunellos 5 and 6 that are within among your samples. So let me start with wine number 5, Brunello di Montalcino Nastagio. This is a single vineyard. The picture I have on the screen just now is a picture of the sign on the public road that indicates where the vineyard is planted. But it's a sign I obtained from the municipality to put up on the main road, on the paved road where all the producers drive up and down, because I wanted my fellow producers to see this sign. because it indicates also the way we should take in Montalcino to give better value to the diversity of our territory. So it's a sign that indicates the way towards zoning, towards recognizing the differences of the various microclimates we have on the territory. So Nastagio is the name of the vineyard. It's a very ancient name that dates back to the Middle Ages. It's just a name. It doesn't have any particular meaning, but it represents a very special hill with a very heavy clay that will tighten on the roots of the vines during the summer, during the hot and dry summers, and gave a lot of concentration to the grapes, a lot of depth to the grapes. Because of these characteristics, we have decided to use for the first year of aging in oak, small barrels, barriques and tonneaux, and then the larger barrels for second and third year. So we have a little bit more oakiness to compensate the greater depths and structure of this Brunello di Montalcino, this single vineyard Brunello di Montalcino. So a bit of tradition and a bit of modernity in this bottle. James Sackling seems to have taken a liking to this wine. He gave it 97 points. And these are the ratings from the other wine writers. It is interesting how this wine from Cordoccia is a little bit more modern, and the more traditional wine critics, such as Antonio Galloni with Venus or Wine Enthusiast, rated it a little bit less than more modern tasting wine critics such as Wine Spectator or Robert Parkett or James Sackling, actually. So a more modern tasting Brunello di Montalcino single vineyard from Cordoccia, still within tradition, still with our traditional view to the production of Brunello.
It's a bit
Any
of a two-edged
questions
sword.
so far?
It's a bit of a two-edged sword that he gave it 97 points because we're completely sold out. Guys, you'll see on the list of wines available for sale. Number 5.
No, I just got some.
Oh,
I just
okay.
got some.
So do we have it in Singapore?
Yeah.
All right, then I'll make a change to the site after the tasting. Sorry,
Okay.
Francesco.
Wine number 6.
Yep.
Wine number 6 is Brunello di Montalcino Riserva, Poggio al Vento. Poggio al Vento means windy height. It's the name of the vineyard. This is also a single vineyard. This is the traditional single vineyard, the traditional Riserva that Cordoccia has produced ever since vintage 1982. It is an historic label for Montalcino. It is a benchmark for traditional Brunellos. Brunello has evolved a lot. Many new producers have, new and old producers have invested in the production of Brunello and have created a very large range of different interpretations of Brunello. The Poggio al Vento has remained unchanged, has remained a reference insofar as traditional Brunello, belonging. And when we say traditional Brunello, we mean respecting the core value of Brunello, ageability. So Poggio al Vento, we are tasting a wine from 2013. It is the current vintage of this wine. It has spent 4 years aging, so 3 years aging in the oak barrels, and then another 4 years aging in the bottle at this stage. And it's still quite young. You can taste it. You can still taste the freshness, and you can see it has potential for further aging over time.
Francesco, I understand that there won't be a 14 Poggio and the next one will be 15. Is that right?
That's right. We do not produce Poggio al Vento every vintage. We produce it only when we have a guarantee of the ageability. and so 14 we did not produce it.
Um,
And that's when we don't produce it, the Poggio al Vento wine goes into our vintage Brunello and enhances the vintage Brunello for that year.
when doing some reading on the history of the winery, I read, and I'm sorry to bring it up because it's probably quite painful for you, but in 2018, some thieves with very great sense of taste decided to steal 10,000 bottles of your Poggio from the winery. It was quite interesting how they selected the 97 and the 99 only, and they only wanted Poggio. So whoever these terrible people are who nicked all your wine, they certainly have incredibly good taste.
Yes, yes, it was a very unique robbery.
Yeah.
They left everything quite tidy. It's like they respected the place, and something that left me completely without words. It's the fact, for instance, they took only 750 bottles. They didn't touch the magnums. I would have taken all the magnums.
Probably because I
myself.
guess, like the art world, the scarcer it is, the harder it is to fence in the open market. So that's probably the
That's
only
a good
reason,
point.
because the magnums, the 97 and 99 magnums, would be unspeakably good at this stage.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. So Poggio al Vento, thank you for pointing that out for memory. But we still have some bottles in the cellar, so it's part of our offer of all vintages.
Yeah.
We have the largest collection of all vintages of Brunello di Montalcino in the denomination. So if there's some special request of for some celebration, some anniversary, we happy to look into our.
Oh, that's good to bear in mind.
We have anything available.
That's terrific. We do quite a lot of back vintage offers from Piedmont. So we do Fontana Fredda and one or two others. I don't think we've ever discussed with you the idea of doing some back vintage from Cordocchio, but maybe that's something Lou and you can discuss at some point in the future.
Yes, with pleasure. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, should we move on to number 3?
Large formats.
Yeah. Should we move on to number 3 and 4 now?
Yes. So the ratings of Poggio al Vento, well, they speak for themselves, but 96, 90 points. And so wine number 3 now, called Nearco. Nearco is a blend of Merlot, Cabernet, and Syrah. It is a Sant'Antimo wine, so all the grapes are grown on the estate. They're all our own grapes. They are aged for 1 year in barrique for separately, and then the wine is blended and bottled. It is a very international wine. The profile is very international. I like to say that it's a wine that speaks many languages, because it can really many consumers can relate to these wines. Less experienced wine lovers will find a great range of flavors and aromas in this wine, and more experienced wine drinkers will find the structure, power, and depth to this wine.
Yeah,
so
the more
another
Merlot,
expression of how special Montalcino is.
The more Merlot that we drink from Tuscany, the more I love it. And particularly when it's in this kind of a bottling where it's the dominant varietal in the piece. The other note that I pulled from this vintage, the 16 vintage, is that it's cooler than the juxtaposition vintages of 15 and 17. So the argument here is what's making Nearco 16 quite specifically interesting is this focus and precision in the flavor construct and the actual construct of the wine in general. It has a purity of spirit, but a very, very focused delineation and length to it.
Yes, you're right in pointing that out, because with climatic change, Merlot at times has some trouble with the great heat in such as 15 or 17. On the other hand, 16 we had a very good season for Merlot, and that makes this this vintage for Nearco quite special. No doubt about that. Yeah.
So that's at
And,
$55 on our site.
And then we have wine number 4, and wine number 4 is Olmaia. Olmaia is a single variety, 100% Cabernet Sauvignon from a single vineyard. This is a wine that a historic wine for Cordoccia. First harvest was 1989, and we've had an incredible success with this wine all through the years, ever since 1989. It is an expression again of how special Montalcino is, how it can ripen fully the Cabernet Sauvignon grape. Then it's up to us at Cordoccia to pick it before it goes over the top, and retaining the varietal, but at the same time the freshness and the drinkability. It is a Cabernet Sauvignon that has a great aging potential, and the Cabernet Sauvignon that really can withstand the comparison with the great Cabernet Sauvignons from other parts of the world, precisely because it's from Montalcino, from this very special climate.
Monica Lana speaks of this 2015 Olmaia that we're tasting tonight as the very best that's ever come from Cordoccia Estate, which is high praise indeed. She aligns it with some of the very best that are available anywhere in Tuscany, and it represents really good pricing as it sits on our database. Yeah, Grant, you're right. Just in one word, wow, it's a spectacular wine, and not given enough credit. I think that's possibly because the Brunelli are so amazing, and Cordoccia is so famous for the Brunello. This one maybe gets left in the shade in terms of consumers, but there's no question this is a stunning wine, and one of the very best examples of it out of the valley, out of the region.
Well, one of the reasons, because this wine is not so well known, it's because I kept the production very small. Even though it has won incredible awards, I have one here, Best Cabernet Sauvignon Worldwide in the year 1997 in London in the Wine and Spirit competition. I did not increase production on the wake of awards or ratings such as this one, because I wanted to keep it excellent, and so there's very few bottles of it. It's just for connoisseurs, and certainly a bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon you can take to any tasting, to any bring your own Cabernet gathering, and usually come out as one of the winners.
I'm so glad that you put these Cabernets at the end of the tasting. Now, you're 100% right. They would have got a little lost in the middle. So thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Francesco. It's great, and even more exciting to know that we've got some more Nearco available to give to our consumers. I will. I think I might get that put on a T-shirt.
Yes, why not?
Thank you so much. Are there any questions?
Thank you for this opportunity to share with you guys, and let me say, I cannot get rid of this.
Oh, it's
screen,
okay. I think yeah, there we go. Done. It's been fantastic having you tonight. Really great to take some time and actually wander through these in some more detail. So thanks so much, Francesco. Are there any questions from anybody?
If anybody has a chance to travel, we're always open for tasting in Montalcino.
That would be great.
We miss visitors. We would like you to come and visit again.
We'd love to be there, Francesco. But I always have one question that I ask, and that is, of all our guests, when the lights are off and no one's watching, what do you like drinking?
Well, it's lunchtime here, and I will be drinking now with some sausages and lentils I have on the fire. The Rosso di Montalcino today. The Ghiaie Bianche, the Chardonnay, I'll keep for tomorrow because I know it will open up better with some time leaving it open overnight. And then my sons will help me with the Brunellos.
How is Santiago? I haven't seen him for a while.
Doing great. He's doing great.
Good.
He's doing great. He has girlfriend problems. That's
Right, yeah, too many.
Problem.
Yeah. For those who haven't met Francesco's eldest son, Santiago, he looks like Leonardo DiCaprio, and he acts like him, and the women absolutely love him.
But he still has girlfriend problems.
So does Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh yeah, they're going down the same route, those two.
Yeah. All right, thanks so much, Francesco. It's been great to talk to you today, and hope to see you in Italy
Good to
soon.
taste together. Thank you.
Yes. Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Thank you, ciao.
Thank you.